My name is Wilder Morrison, and I just turned 35 this year. If you ask me if I am satisfied with my life, I would say without hesitation, yes, very much so. Standing on the hill of our family vineyard, I can take in the entire property. The rows of vines glistened under the California sun. The vines were dotted with plump fruit, and the air was filled with the aroma of earth and sunshine. In the distance, our Victorian manor house stands tall, symbolizing the Morrison family's century of glory and heritage. Wilder, where are you? Luna's voice came from behind me, and I turned to see my beautiful wife walking towards me. Her long blonde hair shimmered in the sunlight, the emerald green of the vineyard reflected in her eyes, and her mouth was tipped with that smile I love so much. Hey, honey. I reached around her waist and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. How are you feeling today? Luna's hand unconsciously touches the small of her back. A hint of an emotion I can't read flashes in her eyes. It's fine, just a little tired. I've been too busy with work lately. I nodded in understanding, as Luna is the creative director of a well-known local design company and is always busy with her work. Despite this, she still insists on being involved in the running of the family winery, which is deeply gratifying to me. Don't wear yourself out too much, I said softly, especially now. You know, we're trying for a baby. Luna's body seemed to stiffen slightly, but quickly relaxed again. I know. I'll keep an eye on it. She changed the subject. By the way, you're going sailing next week, right? I nodded, yes, routine training for the Naval Reserves. This mission could last 6 months. Luna's eyes flashed with an imperceptible complexity, but then returned to their normal state. Make sure you're careful and keep me posted on time. Of course, I promise. I tightened my arm around her. When I get back, we'll seriously consider expanding the winery. I already have some new ideas that I believe will double our production. Luna smiled and nodded, but I always felt her smile was a little forced. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Work has really been wearing us all down a bit lately. Night fell, and we returned to the estate. I sat in my study, taking care of company business. As an executive of a Silicon Valley tech company, I often had to deal with emergencies even at home. Just as I was focusing on the computer screen, Luna pushed her way in. Honey, Chris just called and said he wants to talk to you tomorrow about the new brewing program. Chris is our newest young winemaker and has made quite a name for himself in the industry at such a young age. His addition to the team gives me more confidence in the future of the winery. Okay, I'll make time to meet with him tomorrow, I replied, my eyes still on the screen. Luna paused behind me for a moment, as if she wanted to say something. Finally, she just said softly, "Get some rest," and exited the study. I sighed and closed my laptop. Looking out the window at the moonlight, I couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Life seems perfect, but why do I always feel empty inside? Maybe it's the upcoming sea mission that makes me feel uneasy, or maybe it's the pressure of work that makes me sensitive. No matter what, I believe that as long as Luna is by my side, we will be able to get through this difficult time and create a better future together. However, I could never have imagined that a turn in life was coming, and that everything I held dear was about to fall apart in lies and betrayal. The docks of the San Diego Naval Base were teeming with people, sailors busily traveling to and from their ships and the shore, making final preparations for the ocean mission they were about to embark on. I stood on the deck and looked down at Luna on the pier, her long blonde hair flowing in the ocean breeze, tears in her eyes as she tried to squeeze out a smile. Be sure to come back safely. Her voice was a little choked. I nodded. I promise. I'll be back in 6 months, and then we can. I didn't finish my sentence, but Luna understood what I meant. We discussed before that when I got back from this mission, we'd start thinking seriously about having a baby. However, Luna's reaction was a bit strange. Her smile seemed a bit forced, and her eyes were slightly averted. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. After all, parting is always sad. Luna, I shouted, take care of yourself and don't worry too much about the winery. Everything will be fine with Chris. Upon hearing Chris' name, Luna's expression changed slightly, but quickly returned to normal. She nodded vigorously. I know, don't worry. As the steam whistle sounded, I had to say goodbye to Luna. An inexplicable uneasiness welled up in me as I watched her figure fade into the crowd at the pier. But I quickly put that feeling behind me and focused on the mission that was about to begin. The days at sea are always monotonous and busy. During the day, we conducted various maneuvers and training. At night, I would take the time to send messages to Luna and listen to her talk about what was going on at home and at the winery. At first, her messages were always timely and detailed, but as time went on, her replies became fewer and shorter. One night I sent my usual message to Luna asking how she and the winery were doing. After a long wait, I received her reply, "Everything is fine, no worries. Chris is confident in the new winemaking program." The sight of Chris's name brought a sudden surge of a strange feeling to my heart. I thought back to Luna's reaction when she heard the name before the trip and her increasingly perfunctory messages lately. I tried to convince myself it was just paranoia, but the uneasy feeling grew stronger. Just then, I received a text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Morrison, this is your neighbor John. I think there is something you should know." My heartbeat suddenly quickened. John was our old neighbor, a man of integrity, not the kind of person who would casually move things around. If he felt the need to send me such a message, something important must have happened. I took a deep breath and replied, "John, please just tell me what happened." John's reply came quickly, "I'm not sure I should tell you, but as a friend, I think you have a right to know. Lately, I've been seeing that young winemaker Chris over at your house a lot at late hours." My hands began to shake and I could barely hold the phone. John then sent a couple of pictures, and although they were a little blurry because of the bad lighting, I recognized Chris's car parked in front of my house, and the time showed that it was all late at night. My mind went blank, and it was as if all the strength had been drained from my body. I didn't want to believe it, but all signs pointed to a possibility I was most reluctant to face. With trembling fingers, I sent Luna a message. "Honey, have you been busy at the winery lately? Is Chris' work still going well?" The wait for a reply seemed like years. Finally, Luna's message came, "It's okay. Not very busy. Everything is fine with Chris. Why are you asking about him all of a sudden?" My heart was in my mouth as I watched the bland response. Luna was lying. She hadn't mentioned Chris's frequent late-night visits. At that moment, I felt the trust that had been built up between us over the years was crumbling. I forced myself to calm down and decided to observe for a while longer. In the following days, I continued my mission as usual on the surface, but inside I was on pins and needles. I began to pay attention to every detail in Luna's messages, analyzing every sentence for possible hidden meanings. Finally, with a month to go before the end of the assignment, I made up my mind to hire a private investigator. I knew it went against my principles, but I had no choice. I needed the truth, no matter how brutal it was. When the detective's report and photos were sent to my cell phone, my world came crashing down. The photos showed Luna and Chris hugging and kissing in our wine cellar, their expressions so intimate and intoxicated. I sat paralyzed on the bed, feeling breathless. Our vows, our dreams, everything we built together had become ridiculous and unreal in this moment. However, even with this blow, I did not immediately expose Luna, and I decided to wait until the end of the mission to confront her face to face. After all, our marriage and the family business were at stake, and I couldn't make a decision on impulse. The return voyage was a constant torment for me. I didn't know what to expect from the upcoming confrontation, but I knew that our lives would never go back to the way they were. As I stood in front of my house, it felt as if a century had passed. 6 months at sea, combined with my inner torment, had made me feel much older. Taking a deep breath, I pushed open the door. "Wilder!" came Luna's voice from the kitchen, followed by her jogging appearance in the foyer. Her smile was as bright as ever, as if nothing had changed. "Welcome home, honey." I forced myself to smile and opened my arms to embrace her. Luna's body looked so familiar and so foreign in my arms. I smelled the faint perfume of her hair and couldn't help but think of those pictures of her and Chris in an intimate embrace. "You must be tired?" Luna asked with concern as she let go of me. "I prepared your favorite steak. Would you like to take a shower and then we'll have dinner together?" I nodded. "Good idea. I do need to relax a bit." Walking into the bathroom, the hot water washed over my body, but it couldn't wash away the haze inside. I closed my eyes as the pictures and text messages kept flashing in my mind. How was I going to face all of this? Confront them directly? or wait and see what happens? Over dinner, Luna gushed about what had happened in the past 6 months. The winery's new varieties had been a huge success and sales had doubled. Her design firm had received several big projects and her business was booming. Thanks to Chris, I noticed a slight twinkle in her eye as she mentioned the name. He's really talented and passionate about brewing. I forced myself to hold back my inner waves and asked in a mock, light-hearted manner, "Oh, looks like he helped a lot while I was away." Luna's fork paused for a moment, but quickly resumed eating as if nothing had happened. "Yeah, he's really dedicated. Often works late. Sometimes we'll discuss it together until the early hours of the morning." I clenched my fists, my nails sinking deep into the flesh of my palms. How dare she admit so openly that she and Chris were alone late into the night without mentioning a word about their illicit relationship? This blatant deception deepened my pain. "Sounds like you guys are getting along," I forced myself to say. "I'll have to thank him someday." Luna smiled. "You guys are going to be great friends. Chris is nice and—" I interrupted her. "Honey, we talked about this before, remember?" Luna's expression suddenly became slightly flustered. "What is it?" "About the baby." I looked her straight in the eye. "We agreed I was going to seriously consider having a baby when I got back from this mission." Luna's face instantly turned pale. "Oh, that? Walder, you just came back. We're not in a hurry, are we? Besides, the winery and the company are so busy right now." I nodded and didn't continue the conversation. Luna was obviously avoiding it, which confirmed my suspicions even more. My heart sank little by little. For the next few days, we both played the part of a perfect marriage. I pretended I didn't know anything and continued to play the role of the caring husband. Luna was more attentive, as if she was trying to make up for something. But the rift between us was growing. I began to notice details I had previously overlooked. Luna's cell phone was always pressed under her pillow. She would excuse herself from work to go out alone from time to time. And even when we were together, her thoughts often seemed to be out of the moment. One night, I pretended to be sleeping when I heard Luna gingerly get up and walk out onto the balcony to make a phone call. Even though she lowered her voice, I heard just a few words. "No, he just came back. We have to be careful. Wait a little longer. I miss you too." Every word was like a knife, stabbing deep into my heart. I closed my eyes tightly, tears slipping silently down my face. The next morning, Luna prepared a hearty breakfast as usual. She smiled brightly as if last night's phone call had never happened. "Honey," she said suddenly, "I was thinking maybe we could plan a short trip, just the two of us, and have a nice relaxing time." I looked at her sincere expression and had mixed feelings. Did she really want to salvage our relationship, or was she just trying to cover up her betrayal? "Well," I heard myself say, "we do need to get along." A flicker of an emotion I couldn't read flashed in Luna's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by joy. "Great. I'll go arrange it right away." As I watched her gleefully make phone calls to book hotels, I was struggling fiercely inside. Should I continue this sham of a marriage, or should I face reality head-on? I love Luna, but her betrayal has hurt me deeply. Can we ever rebuild trust? Just then, my cell phone vibrated. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Morrison, this is Private Investigator Tom. I have some new information I need to tell you. Is it convenient to meet?" My heartbeat accelerated. It seemed that it was far from over. I took a deep breath and replied, "Okay, I'll see you at the usual place at 3 o'clock this afternoon." I looked up to Luna, who was excitedly planning a trip, and knew in my heart that our marriage was coming to its final judgment. Regardless of the outcome, life would be forever changed. But for the moment, all I could do was continue to play the role of the happy husband and wait for the day when the truth surfaced once and for all. I sat in the corner of the cafe, my fingers tapping the tabletop. Tom, the private investigator, was late. Every minute of waiting felt like torture, my brain constantly simulating possibilities, each one worse than the last. Finally, a middle-aged man walked briskly into the cafe, looked around for a moment, and then walked toward me. "Mr. Morrison?" he asked, lowering his voice. I nodded and gestured for him to sit down. Tom pulled an envelope out of his briefcase and carefully pushed it in front of me. "Here are the latest findings," he said, "and I think you should see them for yourself." I took a deep breath and opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of photos and a detailed report. The photos showed Luna and Chris getting intimate on various occasions, sneaking kisses in our wine cellar, having dinner at a fancy restaurant, and even cuddling in front of a hotel. My hands began to shake and my stomach lurched. Even though I was prepared for it, seeing the evidence with my own eyes gave me a wave of vertigo. Mr. Morrison, Tom's voice pulled me back to reality. There's something else you should know. I looked up and saw a hint of hesitation on his face. According to my research, Chris Blake is not his real name. His real name is Aaron Rodgers, and he once served time in prison for fraud. After his release, he changed his name and started a new life. The news hit me like a punch in the gut and snapped me out of it. Not only had Luna betrayed me, she'd gotten involved with a con artist. Our winery, our family business, could be in danger. "Thank you, Tom," I said with difficulty. "You've been a great help." After leaving the cafe, I drove to our vineyard. Standing in the middle of a field of vines, I felt more lonely and lost than ever before. This piece of land held the blood of several generations of our family and witnessed the love between Luna and me. Now, it was all shrouded in the shadow of betrayal. I took out my cell phone and hesitated for a long time before finally dialing Luna's number. "Honey, what's wrong?" Her voice sounded pleasant. "Luna, I tried to keep my emotions in check. We need to talk. Tonight, just the two of us." There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds, then Luna whispered, "Okay, I'll see you tonight." After hanging up the phone, I stood in the vineyard and watched the sun slowly sink into the horizon. I knew that tonight's conversation would determine our future. In the evening, as we sat at our family table, Luna seemed to notice something unusual in the atmosphere, her fingers fidgeting uneasily with her napkin. "Wilder," she broke the silence. "What do you want to talk about?" I took a deep breath and looked her straight in the eye. "Luna, I know everything. About you and Chris." Her face instantly turned pale, her lips trembling slightly. "You? What are you talking about?" "Stop pretending." My voice trailed off from suppressed anger. "I have proof. Pictures, texts, everything. How long have you been cheating on me behind my back?" Luna's eyes filled with tears as she lowered her head and her shoulders began to shake. "Wilder, I'm sorry. I don't know how to explain." "Let's start with the truth then," I said coldly. "Why? Is our marriage so worthless to you?" Luna looked up, tears running down her cheeks. "It's not like that, Wilder. I love you. I really do. But you're always away and I feel so alone. Chris, he's always there for me, understanding, supportive. So that's why you betrayed me?" My voice began to rise. "Because I work for our future? Because I fulfill my duty?" "No, it's not like that," Luna cried. "I know I'm wrong. I really do. I shouldn't have done it. But Wilder, we can start over, right? We can work together and fix our relationship." I shook my head and took a picture out of my pocket and pushed it in front of her. "Luna, do you know who Chris really is? He's a liar, a criminal who's been in prison before." Luna looks at the picture in surprise, then looks up with confusion and fear in her eyes. "What? This can't be." "That's the truth," I said. "Not only have you betrayed me, you've put our family business at risk. Have you thought about the consequences?" Luna broke down and she slumped over the table and cried in pain. I sat there, watching her, my mind filled with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to comfort her. The other part was filled with anger and a sense of betrayal. "Wilder," Lillian drawled, "I'm really sorry. I'll end my relationship with Chris and we can start over, okay? We can get through this together." I closed my eyes and sighed deeply. Can we really start over? Can those betrayals and lies, those hurts, really be healed by time? "Luna," I finally said, "I need time. We both need time to think things over. Right now, I think we should take some time apart." She looked up with fear in her eyes. "You mean divorce?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I'm not sure of anything right now. All I know is that we can't just go on like this." That night, I packed up some necessities and checked into the winery's guest room. Lying on the unfamiliar bed, looking out the window at the moonlight, I remembered the vows we had made. the dreams we shared. Everything has changed, and I don't know what the future holds. All I know is that no matter what, I must face this cruel reality and make the right choice for myself, for our family. Time was as frozen as if it had passed day by day, but every moment felt like an eternity. Luna and I began a strange coexistence. We lived under the same roof, but seemed to live in parallel worlds. Our conversations became mechanical and brief, limited to the necessary exchange of chores and work. It was in this suffocating atmosphere that our wedding anniversary crept up on us. That morning, I woke up and walked down the stairs to the smell of coffee and toast. In the kitchen, Luna was busy preparing breakfast, and when she saw me, she gave a slightly forced smile. "Good morning, Wilder," she said softly. "I thought, maybe we could have breakfast together?" I nodded and sat down at the table. Luna brought omelets and bacon, along with my favorite, blueberry pancakes. It was a traditional breakfast for our wedding anniversary in years past. "Wilder," Luna took a deep breath. "I know this time between us, it's been difficult, but today is our anniversary. I was thinking that maybe we could talk?" I looked up into her expectant and apprehensive eyes. For a moment, I almost went soft. But then those heartbreaking images came back to mind. "Okay," I finally said, "let's talk." Luna seemed relieved as she spoke carefully. "Wilder, I know I made a huge mistake. I hurt you. I hurt our marriage. But I really regret it. I want to salvage our relationship. Can we start over?" I was silent for a while, then said, "Luna, you know what? I've been wondering for a while now what went wrong with our marriage. Is it that I'm too busy at work? Was I not caring enough about you? But now I realize that the problem isn't with me, and it's not all with you." Luna looked at me quizzically. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath and continued. "The problem is that the trust between us is broken. Not only did you betray me, you lied to me. You put our family business in jeopardy by having a relationship with someone with a criminal past. How do I forgive all of this?" Luna's face turned pale. "Wilder, I didn't know Chris's background. I swear, if I knew." "But you chose to betray," I interrupted her. "Even without knowing his background, you chose to betray our marriage vows." Tears began to well up in Luna's eyes. "Wilder, please. I know I was wrong. I really am. Just give me a chance, okay? We can get over this together. We've been through so much." I stood up and walked to the window. In the yard, those roses we planted together were in full bloom. Once upon a time, we used to think about the future and make vows in those rose bushes. Now, those beautiful memories have become so ironic. "Luna," I turned around and looked her straight in the eye. "I think we both need time and space. I've decided to move out for a while." Luna jolted to her feet. "No, Wilder, don't. We can figure this out together." "I've contacted a lawyer," I said calmly, "and we need to consider a separation, and maybe it will end up being a divorce." At the word divorce, Luna slumped in her chair and began to sob. I walked over to her and gently placed an envelope on the table. "This is our wedding ring," I said, "and I think you should keep it. For now, at least, I can't keep wearing it." Luna looked up at me with teary eyes. "Wilder, please, don't do this. I love you. I really do." I felt my heart tugged hard. Despite all this, I couldn't deny my feelings for her. But there are some things that, once broken, are very hard to recover from. "I loved you too once, Luna," I whispered, "and maybe still do. But love requires trust, and the trust between us is gone." I turn toward the door and Luna follows me, crying, "Wilder, don't go. We can start over. I promise I'll change." I stopped and gave her one last look. "Luna, sometimes the best way to love someone is to let them go. We both need time to think and figure out what we really want." After saying that, I opened the door and walked out. Behind me, I heard Luna break down and cry. I resisted the urge to turn around and stride towards my car. Driving away from the home we shared, I felt an inexplicable sense of relief and sadness at the same time. This anniversary, which should have been a celebration of our love, had become a turning point in our marriage. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that starting today, my life will never be the same. I need time to heal my wounds and find myself again. Maybe one day, I'll be able to forgive Luna and forgive myself. But for the moment, I can only choose to leave, for the good of both of us. Driving off into the unknown future, I said to myself in my mind, Wilder Morrison, it's time for a fresh start. The first month away from home was the hardest. I moved into an apartment in town and commuted between the apartment and the winery every day. Work became my escape from reality, and I put all my energy into running the winery. However, reality is always a relentless reminder. One afternoon, I was in my office reviewing a new brewing program when I received a sudden call from Luna's father. Wilder, his voice sounded tired and frustrated. We need to talk. I sighed, okay, Uncle Eric. Where are we meeting? Half an hour later, I was sitting in the living room of Luna's parents' house. Aunt Martha brought coffee and then joined Uncle Eric across from me. Wilder, Uncle Tom spoke up, we know what happened between you and Luna. We're not here to blame you. We just want to know, is there any chance of redemption? I looked down at the coffee cup in my hand and pondered how to answer. This was a dilemma for me as well. Honestly, I don't know. I finally said, once trust is broken, it's hard to rebuild. Aunt Martha took my hand. Wilder, we know Luna made a big mistake. But people make mistakes, don't they? Maybe you guys could try marriage counseling? I smiled bitterly. Auntie, it's not just about making mistakes. Luna not only betrayed me but also put the family business in danger. That man, Chris, he has a criminal record. Uncle Tom sucked in a cold breath. What? Does Luna know about this? I shook my head. She said she didn't know. But that doesn't change anything. The room fell into silence. I could feel the disappointment and worry of Uncle Eric and Aunt Martha. They consider me their son, and it must be heartbreaking for them to see our marriage come to this now. Wilder, Uncle Eric concluded, we will support you in whatever decision you make. You'll always be part of our family. I felt a lump in my throat. Thank you guys. I'll never forget how good you guys have been to me. After leaving Luna's parents' house, I drove to one of my favorite spots, the hill overlooking the entire vineyard. Sitting there, watching the sun slowly sink into the mountains in the distance, I began to think back on my time with Luna, our first date in this vineyard. The night I proposed to her, with a sky full of stars witnessing our vows. Every joyous moment we spent together. All these wonderful memories are now overshadowed by the shadow of betrayal. I pulled out my phone and saw that there were several unread messages from Luna. Wilder, can we talk? I'm really sorry. Give me a chance, okay? I've cut off all contact with Chris. I want to save our marriage. I stared at the messages with mixed feelings. Part of me wanted to forgive her, wanted to believe that there was a chance we could start over. But another part of me couldn't get past the pictures, the lies, the betrayal. Just then, the phone vibrated again. It was a message from my old friend Michael. Hey man, I heard you haven't been doing so well lately. Want to come out for a drink? I hesitated, then replied, yeah, I'll see you at the usual place. Maybe talking to a friend will make me feel better. At the bar, Michael was silent for a few moments as he listened to my whole story. Wilder, he said finally, I can't tell you what to do, but I'd like to ask you a question. If the roles were reversed, what would you want Luna to do if you were the one who made the mistake? This question put me in deep thought. If I had betrayed Luna, would I expect her to forgive me? Would I expect to get a second chance? I don't know, Michael, I sighed. It's too complicated. Michael patted me on the shoulder. It's okay, man. You don't need to make a decision right now. Give yourself some time and think about it. Remember, we'll support you in whatever decision you make. After leaving the bar, instead of going straight back to my apartment, I drove to my and Luna's home. I sat in the car, looking at the place we used to call home with a mixture of conflict and uncertainty. I knew that I was about to face a big decision. Should I give our marriage a chance to start over, or end the relationship altogether? Whichever path I chose, it would completely change the course of my life. As I watched the house light up, I took a deep breath and picked up my cell phone. I knew it was time to make a decision. I sat in my attorney's office, my fingers unconsciously tapping on the desktop. Outside the window, the California sun was still shining brightly, but inside me was like the gloom before a storm. Mr. Morrison, the lawyer's voice brought me back to reality. Here are the divorce papers. Are you sure you want to do this? I took a deep breath as my eyes fell on the papers in front of me. Each word was like a sharp blade, cutting into my heart. Yes, I'm sure, I heard myself say. At the moment of signing, I felt a wave of dizziness. Just like that, 11 years of marriage on a piece of paper agreement drew to a close. Walking out of the lawyer's building, I didn't immediately drive away, but instead wandered aimlessly through the streets. Without realizing it, I came to the small cafe where Luna and I had our first date. Through the glass window, I saw people inside talking and laughing as if the whole world was none of my business. I pulled out my cell phone and hesitated for a long time before finally dialing Luna's number. Wilder, she sounded a little surprised. Hi, Luna. I tried to keep my voice calm. I just finished signing the divorce papers. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, so long that I thought she had hung up. I understand, she said finally, a catch in her voice. Wilder, I'm really sorry. I know, I said softly, and I'm sorry it came to this. After hanging up the phone, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief and confusion at the same time. 11 years of married life had come to an end just like this. Where do I go from here? In the days that followed, I threw myself completely into my work. During the day, I was busy at the winery. At night, I often sat alone in my office until late at night. I tried to fill the emptiness inside me with work, but that sense of loss always lingered. However, just when I thought I was going to muddle through the rest of my life like this, an unexpected discovery changed everything. It was an ordinary afternoon, and I was sorting through the old wines in my cellar. Suddenly, I found a dusty bottle of wine with a blurred label, but I vaguely recognized it as the last batch of wine my father had made during his lifetime. I carefully uncorked the bottle, and a mellow aroma immediately hit me. I poured a small glass, gently shook it, and then slowly tasted it. At that moment, as if turning back time, I saw my father's busy figure in the vineyard and heard his voice as he taught me winemaking skills. Tears streamed down my face without me realizing it. I suddenly realized that what I had been searching for was, in fact, here all along. On this land, among these vines, in every bottle of the wine we craft. From that day on, I began to re-examine my life. I was no longer the man haunted by marital betrayal, but the heir to the Morrison family, a man with a responsibility to carry the family business forward. I started researching new winemaking techniques and trying different grape varieties. I invited experts in the industry to visit the winery and exchange experiences. Gradually, our wines became famous in the industry and sales began to rise. One day I received an email from France. A famous wine critic wanted to come to our winery for a tasting and possibly recommend our wines to the European market. As I stood in the vineyard and presented our winemaking philosophy to that critic, I felt a sense of confidence and pride that I hadn't felt in a long time. I saw the amazement and appreciation flash in his eyes as he tasted our wine, and at that moment, I knew we had succeeded. Mr. Morrison, the critic said to me after the tasting, your wine is exceptional. Not only does it have exceptional quality, it contains how shall I put it, a soul. I can feel your love for the land and your dedication to winemaking. His words brought tears to my eyes. Yes, this is what my father taught me and what I have always strived for, to make wine with a soul. That night, I sat alone on a small hill in the vineyard, looking at the star-filled sky. I thought about the past, about Luna, about the failed marriage. But this time, I no longer felt pain and anger. Instead, I felt a sense of peace and gratitude. Yes, I have experienced betrayal and failure, but it is these experiences that have allowed me to rediscover myself and make me appreciate what I have in front of me even more. I raised my glass and gave a silent blessing to the stars. Blessings for Luna to find her own happiness, and blessings for me to move forward on the road ahead. At this moment, I know that life is like an old wine that needs time to settle down and courage to taste the bitterness and sweetness of it. And I, for one, am ready for the next stage of life. Time flies and 2 years have passed since my divorce. During these 2 years, my life has changed dramatically. Morrison Winery has not only gained a foothold in the American market, but has also successfully entered the European market. Our wines have won awards in several international competitions, and we have become an emerging star winery in California. Today was a special day. I was standing in the reception hall of the winery, waiting for a group of wine lovers from all over the country. It was our first open tour to the public, and I was both excited and nervous. As I saw a group of people getting off the bus, my eyes were drawn to one of the women. She had curly chestnut-colored hair and bright starry eyes. She seemed to notice me as well and gave me a small smile. "Welcome to Morrison Winery." I began my welcome. "I'm Wilder Morrison, the owner of this winery. Today, I'll be giving you a tour of our vineyards and winery, sharing our winemaking philosophy and story." The tour went well. When we arrived at the brewery, the chestnut-haired woman raised her hand to ask a question. "Mr. Morrison, I noticed a phrase on your label that says, 'reborn in loss, grown in frustration.' Does that phrase have any special meaning?" I froze for a moment, the question jogging my memory. That phrase had come to me when I was going through a divorce and getting back on my feet. I hesitated and decided to answer honestly. This quote represents my personal, and this winery's, experience. A few years ago, I went through a difficult time. My marriage broke up and I was lost for a while. But it was during those darkest days that I rediscovered my love of winemaking and found a new purpose in life. I saw a flash of understanding and empathy in the chestnut-haired woman's eyes. She nodded gently, as if encouraging me to continue. "We believe that every bottle of wine should have its own story. Just like life, wine needs to go through time to show its best flavor. Through our wines, we hope to convey the message that no matter what life gives you, you have to face it with courage, because every setback is an opportunity for growth." At the end of the tour, most of the visitors left, but the chestnut-haired woman stayed. She walked up to me and held out her hand. "I'm Sophia Brown. I was very impressed with your story." I held her hand and felt a wonderful electricity. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Sophia. You seem to know a lot about wine." She smiled. "I'm a food critic who has recently started to focus on wine. Your winery has inspired me a lot." We had a long conversation, from wine to life. Sophia told me that she too had been in a failed relationship, and it was that experience that led her to devote herself to a career in food criticism. Sometimes life closes a door on us so that we can discover a new window, she said. I looked into her eyes and suddenly felt something creeping up inside me. It was a long-lost anticipation and hope for the future. "Sophia," I asked, gathering my courage, "would you like to visit our winery again? Maybe next time I can show you our private cellar." She smiled and nodded. "I'd love to." After seeing Sophia off, I stood alone in the vineyard, watching the sun slowly sink into the distant mountains. I thought about the past, the sweet moments with Luna, the breakup of my marriage, the hardships of rebuilding my business. All these experiences have shaped me into the person I am today. I am no longer bitter about my past failures. Instead, I am grateful for the experience. It has made me stronger and taught me to cherish the present and look forward to the future. I take a deep breath and smell the aroma of grapes in the air. It's the smell of a new winemaking season coming up and the start of a new life. I took out my cell phone and sent Sophia a message. "There's a wine tasting next Tuesday. Would you like to be my partner?" Soon after, the phone vibrated. Sophia replied, "Sure, I'm looking forward to it." I smiled, with anticipation in my heart. I know that life is like a fine wine that takes time to ferment and time to savor. And now, I am ready for a new life. Whatever the future brings, I will face it with a positive attitude, because I realize that every fall is for a better run, and every failure is for greater success. I raised the glass in my hand and gave a silent blessing to the stars, blessing all those who have experienced setbacks to find their own happiness again, just like me. For I know that in the long course of life, nothing lasts forever, neither happiness nor pain. What matters is that we have the courage to face every challenge and to savor every drop of wine in life. As night fell, I turned toward the winery. Tomorrow, another brand new day, and I, for one, can't wait to taste this new flavor of life. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.